episode of our Crowdcreate Mastermind Series, we've brought on a diverse range of operators, multifamily developers, to active investors in real estate to share their takeaways and opportunities as the world braces for recovery from COVID. Learn how experts have pivoted to value-driven content creation to drive deal flow in this digital age. COVID has fundamentally transformed how to bring attention to your project. And on this episode, you'll learn how they do it, their secrets and insights, and what's working for them.
Welcome to the Crowdcreate Mastermind. So the purpose of this mastermind is to bring together the community, share your insights, and leverage what we call the wisdom of the crowds. You've all been invited here because you are a thought leader in the real estate industry and working on something truly exciting. So the format of these masterminds, as Ivan has mentioned, is to bring attention to your work, build some awesome connections, and ultimately give value to others that are on this call. We'll be putting in links to everybody's bio in the chat, and we encourage all of you to also answer questions from the audience. So the masterminds are typically an hour long, and each person will have 30 seconds to really introduce themselves to the group and highlight who you are, what you're working on, and what are you most excited about in the industry right now. So Ivan, you want to get started?
Yep, thanks, Jeff. So just to introduce myself, I'm Ivan, one of the co-founders at Crowdcreate, and we connect thought leaders, investors, and business executives in real estate to grow their network. So what we're working on is launching these masterminds across multiple industries, including gaming, blockchain. I'm pretty sure everyone has heard NFTs, just covering all of the disruptive, innovative industries on a digital platform. We're also launching private communities where you can join and engage others on this call. So that's pretty exciting for us. And we're actually hosting more and more events like this because everyone is going digital.
Awesome. Thanks, Ivan. And Steve, we'd love for you to go next. We love your vision and we'd love for you to even share your project. Oh, Steve, you're muted right now.
There we go. Sorry. Thanks, Jeff.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm Steve Rodriguez. I'm a developer just 30 minutes south of Seattle. And we've got a multifamily mixed-use development. It's a multi-phase project, very unique. We're acquiring a city block here in the city of Auburn. It's within two-minute walk to a transit center. A great 15-minute ride by train to downtown Seattle. And in the future, next 2 years, we'll also have a 20-minute ride to Bellevue, the two top metropolitan cities in the state here on the I-5 corridor. Very unique. We've got a land acquisition for a city block and transitioning into stage 2, which is a phase 1 36-unit multifamily 5-story tower with mixed-use retail on the first level. And after that, we have a poly bridge loan going right into phase 2 or stage 2 of the development, which is a 80-unit multifamily retail mixed-use development. Nice. Total, the phase 1, very unique 36-unit. We've got a $9 million loan from HUD. It's going to be an asset for 10 years. That particular project will leverage us into a $4 million equity and transition into the second stage of development for the 70 or 80 unit complex.
Oh, thanks, Steve. We'll put the links to everybody's bio in the chat so they can get more information, but it's good just at a high level to kind of introduce who you are, and then we can go around the room and everybody can see what everyone's working on.
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Well, Matt, would love to have you go next.
Yeah. Hey, everyone. Good to be here. Hey, Mark. I was happy to see that you're here on this call today. I am a multifamily investor and syndicator. So, I'm an LP in over 6,000 doors throughout the country. And I've got just about 1,000 that I'm a co-sponsor on with teams of other partners. And the biggest project I'm working on right now is a book that I've written that we're editing right now, and I'll be launching this fall. So pretty excited about that.
Thanks, Matt. We'd love to unpack that later, and would love to hear,
Sure.
your vision behind the book, and even just your why on writing it. So
Be happy to.
nice. Well, Mark, we'd love to have you go next.
Thanks, guys. Great to be here. So my name is Mark Kenny. I'm co-founder of Think Multifamily. We focus 100% on multifamily acquisitions. We're in 9 different states. We've purchased about 10,000 units. In the last several years, I started buying real estate when I was 22, so over 25 years ago. And then we also host events for educational purposes, and we have a coaching program as well. I'm most excited about, I do think there's no perfect investment, but I think multifamily's fared quite well, frankly, overall so far during COVID. I'm excited about that, and then excited about helping other people that want to potentially retire from a W-2 job and start being involved in multifamily real estate.
Thanks, Mark. We have a lot of multifamily experts here. Josh, would love to have you go next.
Great, thank you. I'll continue the multifamily parade. So Choice Housing Investments is impact investing in multifamily real estate. We were founded in 2018 as the strategic capital partner for Vesta Corporation, which is a developer owner, manager of multifamily, primarily focused in the affordable space. And our directive is to raise and deploy equity into future Vesta acquisitions, to be a good steward for our investors that have shown faith and continue to show faith in us. To date, we've invested in 7 properties, totaling about 1,500 units in Texas and New York State. Similar to other impact investments, CHI strives to achieve both attractive returns for its investors and affect positive change, positive social impact. We achieve that by investing in affordable communities and workforce communities with the goal of providing quality housing that is proximate to places of employment.
Awesome. Thanks for that, Josh. And Brian, would love to have you go next. Or is that Brian?
Good morning, everyone. Brian Crum with Caliber Companies in Scottsdale, Arizona. And while we do multifamily, I'm going to talk about a couple other things we're pretty excited about. Caliber, back in 2018, launched one of the first opportunity zone funds in the country. And our fund is actively operating in multiple cities throughout Arizona and getting ready to expand into some other growth markets in the Southwest US. Last year, Caliber actually built a hospital in the middle of COVID. Inside of an opportunity zone, we bought a vacant assisted living facility and converted it into behavioral health care hospital that is now treating patients at a point where behavioral health is needed more than ever. So I'm excited about potentially doing more healthcare related to opportunity zones. And then we're also in the process of getting ready to start building a private school in an opportunity zone to increase access to education while creating great investment opportunities for people. And we also are doing some multifamily, which we're getting ready to go vertical in an area of Mesa, Arizona, where Arizona State University, one of the largest campuses in the country, has recently expanded. Great meeting everyone today.
Thanks, Brian. And I believe I heard you on Jimmy Atkinson's Opportunity Zone podcast. So thanks. Ishmael, would love for you to go next.
Great. Hey, thanks for having me. It's good to be part of this distinguished group of folks here. Ray, as I go by Ray. I'm the president and founder of MI Real Estate based in Orlando, Florida. And we, like a lot of folks here, focus on multifamily acquisitions. I focus on properties in the Southeast and Texas. I also host a Greater Central Florida multifamily investor meeting or meetup. We meet monthly. As far as what we've been working on recently, we just closed on a 104 unit in Augusta, Georgia. It's a C-class property, and we're driving forward with the initial value add on that. So excited to do that and underwriting other properties, like I'm sure a lot of people here are.
Thanks, Ray. Colby, would love to have you go next.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me on. My name is Colby Bowers. Managing partner of Veteran Pride Investment Group, veteran owned and operated. Operating in multifamily and just recently expanding out into mobile home parks, kind of like the affordable housing piece of it. So typically right now, my team and I, we're focusing on Arkansas, Indiana, and Florida for our acquisitions, and closing next week on a 98 pad mobile home park in Pensacola, and got a couple other deals in the pipeline. Really excited about this coming year. I think, now that there's kind of a light at the end of the tunnel after COVID, and seeing some vaccines that are coming online, maybe back in normalcy, we're just seeing deal pick up, and there's a lot of pent up demand for people to deploy their money. So excited about that. Also excited about the, I think, affordable housing. I see it in my backyard, where it's a lot of people are getting priced out, of cities. A lot of metropolitans are having to move out. So I think focusing on affordable housing is going to be key over the next coming years.
Thanks, Colby. That's great. Those are actually the topics we're going to unpack later, post-COVID opportunities and even affordable housing. So yeah, we'll talk about that in a bit. And Jared, would love to have you go next.
Hey guys, pleasure being here. My name is Jared Vidalis with Equity Connect Holdings. We're based out here in Phoenix, Arizona. We're real estate operators, and I think we might be the only SFR operators on this panel. But we essentially aggregate scattered portfolios through our acquisition channel. Obviously renovate them, hold them in-house. But what we kind of figured out was, or not figured out, but came to the realization was, it's extremely hard to scale an SFR. So now we're pivoting more towards the SFR development for rent space. We have a couple parcels in the pipeline. One we own in Mesa. It's going to be a small townhome community. And we have 5 acres in Arcadia, which is a little east of or west of Scottsdale. That should be about 100 units. So excited for BFR. Really excited for the tailwinds where, that kind of came out of the whole COVID pandemic. But that's what we're really excited about.
So we have all geographies on this call, and it's going to be interesting getting a macro, insights from everybody. Marco, thanks for joining us. We'd love to have you go next.
Sounds good. And I apologize, I'm a little late. Believe it or not, I'm actually attending another mastermind event. I was just shooting a video with Robert G. Allen. If you guys all remember Robert Allen, that wrote Nothing Down and all those other pretty famous New York Times bestsellers. So I might get kicked out of this room too here if they have to come in here. This is the green room. Mark, good to see you, by the way. So I'm based out of Southern California. I am the founder of Norada Real Estate Investments. We're a nationwide provider of turnkey rental properties. We probably sell about 850 units a year, properties a year to clients. What am I excited about? I'm looking at the questions here. I have to cheat and go back. So what I'm most excited about this year is just the strong demand for housing. And although it sounds a little strange, the lack of supply, which is a very good thing if you are a real estate investor and you hold a portfolio of properties. It's a good problem to have, but it's a problem nonetheless that we seem to have a hard time addressing across this country. But it's a good opportunity if you own real estate, especially residential, because that's where the opportunity is based on the shortage that we're seeing year after year after year. And I guess as we just go through this process here today, we can talk about anything that I can help you with or vice versa.
Thanks for that, Marco. Yeah, we're all here together, a lot of skill sets, a lot of experience and expert insights. So Ivan, love to start on the first topic.
Yeah, well, awesome. So we have a lot of talented people here from a lot of walks of life, and multifamily is a big one. But the first topic we'd like to unpack here is actually mentioned by several of you. And it's actually, what are those COVID opportunities that you're seeing on the market right now, especially since we're kind of rounding that turn? Cities, I mean, we're based in Los Angeles and they're thinking about dropping it to orange tier. Oh no, I think we missed David's introduction. Let's get to that first. And David. Then I apologize, David. So get to your introduction and then we'll get straight into unpacking what are those COVID opportunities. David, go ahead.
Hey, no worries. Thanks, Ivan. Appreciate being here with all these accomplished folks. My name's Dave Matarazzo. I'm a retired Army officer. I'm neighbors with Steve, just south of Seattle. I'm also a multifamily real estate investor. I started out after I retired from the Army in 2014, and then we worked in the corporate world a little bit. Started out with single family, but like Jared, I just found that single family is a challenge to scale. Love single family real estate. It's a lot of fun. It's profitable, and it's very challenging to scale. So moved into multifamily. Very excited right now about the changes that we're seeing in the market. Transaction volume is really picking up, at least where I am, what I'm seeing. Interest rates are moving. It's not always a good thing, but I'm hoping that we're going to see some cap rate decompression, and it's going to help us see some more attractive prices for acquisitions of multifamily real estate. Very excited about that, and hoping just to find more opportunities to acquire multifamily real estate.
Thanks, David.
David, I think you kind of started it there, but like what are those opportunities you're saying acquiring right now? What are you seeing right now, and where are you looking for those opportunities, especially post COVID? And David, you can kick things off. I apologize for missing you on the introductions.
No worries. Well, we're looking in Washington State right now. For the past year, really just seen kind of a limited. The deal flow has been a challenge. Finding a lot of deals has been a real challenge. And in the last month or so, that has really picked up. Just seeing a lot more deal flow, a lot more transaction volume, a lot more opportunities. So we're very excited about that. That there's just a lot more opportunities, a lot more things are coming onto the market. We invest in small commercial multifamily, mom and pops, trying to find kind of undermanaged properties, little deferred maintenance, things that have below market rents, and try to pick those up at a good price. And those have been hard to find. They're always hard to find, but I think that more and more opportunities are coming up.
David, do you have any, secrets to getting these deals? Are you doing mailers, or do you have a good network?
Well, no, I don't have any secrets. I'm always working on that. My primary channel right now is working with a network of good commercial real estate brokers. Also, just networking with other owners, find those people who want to sell. Knowing other people in the space, in the area that we target, is helpful. But no doubt that the biggest channel for us in terms of getting deal flow has been through just commercial real estate brokers.
Very nice. Does anyone else want to share what they're working on? Big post-COVID opportunities?
I'd like to jump in and kind of say, David's getting a lot of his deal flow and stuff through brokers. I'm actually the opposite. I still get a lot of deal flow through brokers, but I wouldn't call them deals. I'm getting a lot of properties from brokers. Where we're actually seeing a lot of success, because I also focus on a little bit smaller, under those 100 units with the mom and pops, is going direct to seller. That's where my deal flow is picked up. My last 5 deals have all been off market, direct to seller. So between doing mailers and cold calling. So we got a VA that we hired, give her a list, and she calls them down and gets those warm leads. So that's just been working for me, and so far so good. So,
Wow,
Colby, what's that?
Oh, go ahead, Matt.
I was just curious, Colby, what type of deals, like what size of deals, and what sort of class are we talking about? Just curious.
Yeah, no, that's a good question, Matt. I consider myself an opportunistic investor. So if the numbers make sense, I'll look at it. But typically my criteria, especially for off-market direct to sellers, I'm looking for that 20 to 75 units. It's kind of that real sweet spot that we're finding. And, especially now, I think a lot of, at least in my markets, where since we have a new administration in, and a lot of talk about, changes to, taxes and things of that nature, I'm seeing a lot more of those mom and pops that are older wanting to sell. So that's where we're seeing an uptick, at least where I'm at. I'm still seeing, like I said, the broker deals, we're still looking at them, but they're still overpriced. Their pro formas are still kind of pre-COVID. And then to go back, and I really focus on C and B class properties. So not really necessarily turnkey. I like a value add, just like everybody else, right? We're all trying to find that value add one, but I'm really focusing more now on the management side. So where can I go and increase efficiencies on those smaller properties? And that's where we're seeing the best bang for our buck, especially with those mom and pops. So.
Thanks.
Wow, that's great insights. David, let's go to you next.
Everything Colby just said resonated with me a lot. I'm curious, Colby, where are you getting your list? Or are you buying lists for cold calling, or how are you getting the seller list?
Any which way possible. So we're data mining, with data. I've gotten lists through paying bourbon to somebody who had co-stars, Reonomy, wherever I can get what I need. I'm just do that networking. But yeah, it just getting the list however we can. Reonomy's been pretty good. Co-stars is definitely, I think, a little bit more accurate, and then we just scale it down from there, and then put it all on a spreadsheet and start calling.
Yeah, I'm a step behind you, but going in exactly the same direction. I think that's great stuff.
Thanks.
I can speak on that a little bit. Our acquisition model is very similar to Colby. We're obviously, aside from existing SFR, we're acquiring land. And in Phoenix, probably 90% of the land here in Phoenix that's actually worth developing on is either land banked or already owned by an institution. And it's a huge land grab right now. So land prices have doubled in probably the last 10 to 11 months. So our only option is to go after the ownership group, somebody who's not necessarily a corporation or a savvy investor, and work with them directly to try and get our land costs down. But really what it does is it opens us up to sub-markets where, they otherwise wouldn't be available on the open MLS or through CoStar or through any of the large brokers. So that's kind of how we've been kind of carving out our niche, is we have the ability to go after certain sub-markets in certain areas, after great developable sites, stuff that, nobody else would really have access to.
Let's go to Brian, then we'll go to Ray, and then Mark. So go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, there's two opportunities that we're looking at that are somewhat related to COVID, and that has been this trend to see people moving away from the more expensive markets like Seattle, Portland, California, and they're coming to places like Phoenix and Scottsdale, but they're also going to some cities that people aren't necessarily thinking about, like Salt Lake City and Boise, Idaho. So that's probably where part of our next expansion is going to be, is doing opportunity zone projects in areas that have a lot of people moving there that are kind of off the radar of the bigger institutional investors like Boise. And then also, we have also seen an increase in the value of the land that we're developing and selling off to the different home builders. And we're going to start doing some of the single family build to rent communities, which are really kind of pioneered here in the greater Phoenix area. And then we're going to take that model into some smaller, more rural areas where that demand is still there, because people now don't want to live in a lot of apartments where they're crowded together. So they want to have that more space of a single family home, but they might not want to be a homeowner at this point. So those are a couple of things that we're seeing right now.
Thanks, Brian. Let's go to Ray.
Yeah, no, I was actually going to harp just on that. I think one of the biggest things, and it really wasn't something that was triggered by COVID, but it's kind of trending that way, and then COVID really exacerbated it, is this move to tertiary markets. Certainly, around metropolitan areas, but not necessarily in the metropolitan area. And it's when you take a look at some of the population growth that's happening in a lot of places, it's to those secondary and tertiary markets. And so that's an opportunity where you can you have to look at kind of beyond the bigger gateway cities, if you will, to sort of identify those. And there are opportunities in a lot of places.
I guess I could echo that. It's, I think what's very interesting coming out of the pandemic is, it was essentially was a catalyst of a trend that was already forming. People were already wanting to get out of the urban core, out of the city centers into more, suburban type of living. Millennials, pent up demand, they're really late to, create households and really make that next step as far as housing. And I think COVID it was just fuel on the fire, and you saw a lot of people from those urban cores migrate out to suburbia.
All right, so that's a great point. We're going to do about 3 last comments, and we're going to shift over to the next topic. So let's go to Mark and Josh.
Yeah, I would agree with everything that's been said. For us, we focus typically on 100+ units, so we're getting most of our deals through brokers still. They are off market, but we're going to have a lot less competition, maybe 3 or 4 other buyers looking at it. One of the big things we looked at since COVID is there's still a lot of money coming to multifamily, where it's going away from a lot of the other areas in real estate, frankly, at least in the short term for now. But we also are in tertiary markets, and a couple benefits there. One is that the property taxes we find typically aren't reassessed as high in these tertiary markets, which is, compared to like a Dallas, for example, or pure Atlanta. We have some properties we've owned where we've owned over 2 years and property taxes have not been reassessed. In some of these tertiary markets, we've had properties that have gone down in property taxes in tertiary markets. So that's a huge benefit. The other one that we've been focusing on, we own about 50 properties across 9 states, is just how, landlord friendly states aren't necessarily, every county is not necessarily landlord friendly. So you have to be pretty cautious of that. We have some properties we own in the smaller markets too, where the judges all through COVID, even when you weren't supposed to evict, they're still evicting people during COVID and continue. So that's a big benefit, where you compare to a lot of these other larger markets, the bad debt at some of these properties are just astronomical right now, and it will probably never be collected, frankly. So that's why we're focused a lot on tertiary markets as well.
Wow. Josh,
Yes.
I'd love to hear from you.
Similar to a lot of what Mark said, we're based in Connecticut, but we currently have properties in 7 states plus Washington, D.C., and our largest presence right now is in Texas. And we one of the developments during COVID that has been really nice is there are a lot of, especially in San Antonio, but other municipalities as well, there are some COVID related rental assistance programs that we've been able to put our residents in touch with. And I think it was through December 31st, we helped those pay, I think, about $500,000 of resident balances, which was a huge win. We were able to keep our residents housed during the pandemic, and also manage the bad debt, manage the property's revenue a lot better than we otherwise would have been able to. We typically source deals. We do work with in the affordable space. There are national brokers. We find, as I think it was Colby said, that they're not deals, they're properties. We've had some success working with smaller local brokers, though, brokers that intimately know their market and can help us find the right deals. That's been a really good tool for us.
Nice. Thanks, Josh. Kind of curious, in regards to the broker, so the other side of it is funding these deals. And if it's appropriate, I'd like to switch topics. One of the questions from the audience is, what's working right now in terms of getting investors for your funds? And if anybody can share what's kind of working right now to get investor attention to fund your deals.
Colby.
Yeah, Coley would love to have you go first.
Yeah. I love LinkedIn and social media platform and any of the platforms. Putting out content, just free content, has been huge. I also do a webinar. We host like a meetup group virtual. And on this last deal, I raised $250,000 just from investors through LinkedIn that have reached out to me and or had attended, one of my little webinar sessions. So I think just going out there and not being a salesman all the time, but offering free stuff, kind of puts you as, I don't consider myself an expert, but hey, I faked it, I'm here. Just getting out there and being in front of people, kind of builds that rapport with them, and reaching out and then setting up those phone calls. So it's how we've been able to raise money here lately.
Anybody else have any comments? Josh.
So we have 3 categories of investors. We have one large institutional investor, and that gives us a lot of flexibility. They can write big checks for the right deals, and they help us with that. They provide almost a secondary layer of asset management, and they're also a great check on any deal exuberance we may have on the development or the acquisition side. We have a diverse, loyal, growing group of individual investors. We started off with sort of a friends, family, extended business network raise, and so that's worked well. We've, they've been loyal to us and had early faith in us, and we really appreciate that. And then the third group is our own money. We put 10% of the equity needed for deals we put in ourselves. Really demonstrates our commitment to the game, and we can show all the investors that we have skin in the game.
Thanks, Josh. Josh, I'm kind of curious, how much of your new investor money comes from recurring investors and even from referrals and whatnot? Because it sounds like you've done a great job.
So we have a fund model, and so all of our investors are within a fund, and we purposefully did that versus a single asset investment model. The developer that I'm affiliated with, and I've been with them for almost 23 years now, has been profitable every year. And that's, through 2008 crisis, there have been properties that have performed well, properties that haven't, but as a whole, they've performed well. We've performed well. And so what we wanted to do is bring that kind of mindset to our investors. And we thought that was just the best way to I guess, offer them sort of a risk, just to mitigate the risk really from the investment. We were concerned about, I know a lot of groups out there do single asset investment. We just didn't seem to fit for us. So that's what we do. And we're still looking for more investors. So happy to bring others into the fund. And we're able to do that through there's a true up function for our individual investors. So it puts everyone on an even playing field.
Thanks, Josh. Let's go to Brian.
Because Caliber is one of the more visible operators of an opportunity zone fund in the country, what we've been doing is participating in sponsoring events and conferences, which at this point are all online. So that way we can target people that are already coming to those events to learn more about what the Opportunity Zone program is and how it works. And then because everyone has some sort of a deadline where they have to make their investment, we ramp up our marketing efforts, getting close to certain deadlines like the one coming up March 31st, where anyone that experienced a capital gain from any source, not just real estate, during 2020 can still invest into an Opportunity Zone fund by March 31st, because that was an extension related to COVID of the 180-day rule. So just contributing content, being a thought leader, and participating in conferences, and then also sharing that content on different forms of social media as well. Those have all worked out well for us.
Awesome. Okay, we have about room for 2 or 3 more comments on this topic, and then we'll move to the next one. Anybody have any ideas to share on how they get those investors and how they get visibility on their projects?
Is anybody using paid ads through Google? I know Opportunity Zone funds, that's a heavily bid up keyword actually for, I don't know.
Yeah,
tax.
we've used Google Ads, and sometimes they've worked very well. And other times, like right now, it's not working nearly as well, which is why we're focusing more on content creation and dissemination, and then getting the word out through other methods. We also have a large email database. So anytime we have a new deal coming out, it goes out to 20,000 people or more, which has enabled us to fund some deals in relatively short periods of time.
Okay. What kind of content works really well? Is it tax advantageous real estate investing, or on those topics? Is it on the asset itself, or?
A little bit of both. Definitely sharing stories. We got a lot of traction when we started talking about building a hotel during COVID, which at the end of the day, from an investment standpoint, is a medical office building, which a lot of people know do well through all different market cycles. And a lot of our investors are doctors that are in the process of selling their own offices or their own practices. So it was something that was attractive to them because it's an industry and an investment class that they understood already.
Thanks for sharing, Brian. Really good.
We're getting some questions from the audience. Joe Decada and asked a question about 1031. So I think that's a good one for you, Brian, to answer. But almost switching topics, I know many of you mentioned creating content, podcasts, and even speaking on these masterminds. What kind of content has been resonating well with your investors? And many of you say this is where you're getting a lot of deal flow. Kind of just I wanted to hear from the thought leaders here. What are those best performing, secrets to creating content? Mark.
I mean, it kind of depends where the investor is. I mean, you kind of have to start in some cases just with the basics that, larger multifamilies treated more as a business. We've done a lot of different webinars similar to other guys that have mentioned. The biggest one we probably got the biggest bang for the buck is when we went through underwriting from a limited partner perspective, how to look at a deal, rules of thumb, and then how some syndicators, if you want to say, can pretty easily manipulate numbers, if you want to say that, right, to make a deal look good. So to kind of walk through different examples that we received, we walked through our underwriting scenario versus the way other people underwrote the deals, and then compared the returns on that. So it can get a little more complicated, kind of get a little bit higher level, but I think how to look at a deal from a limited partner perspective, just on the surface, and just general rules of thumb has probably been one of the most successful we've done so far.
I'd love to unpack that into more specifics later, but let's go to Matt.
Yeah, I'll just echo a little bit of what Mark was saying. I run a meetup here in the Boston area, and that's where I live. And our two most highly attended ones were we did a panel where I had people who had invested out of state. So we had that panel that was a very, very well attended one. And then we did one where I actually had a syndicator who came in from out of town, and I reviewed the deal, looking at it from a limited partner lens live, and asked them questions and went through and talked about, like Mark is saying, those different levers you can pull. And that's one of the things that I also share about in my book that's coming out in the fall, is sort of the different places to look at where syndicators can, what's that reversion cap rate going to look like? What's rent growth look like? All those different little places where someone can kind of change the numbers a little bit here or a little bit there and make a deal look very attractive, but that deal may have a lot of risk on it. So I think any sort of educational content like that tends to resonate really well with limited partners.
You're gonna have to share more details on that book as it gets closer, but
sure.
Yeah, many of you are participating in all of these masterminds and conferences. Are there any topics besides, how-tos and, kind of behind the scenes? Are there any kind of content pieces that are performing well for you? Anybody else want to take? Oh, Mark, back to you.
I mean, it kind of mentioned a little bit before, but the whole tax advantages to, real estate investing has been a huge eye-opening experience for a lot of people. And depending on your situation, how much you can take advantage of that or not. But I do think that with bonus depreciation and cost segregation, those type of topics are pretty interesting for new investors because a lot of them aren't aware of it. So that's something we've had good success with as well.
Awesome. Ray, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, just dovetailing a little bit on the last one, I think the book idea is a very good one, focusing from the limited partner perspective, I would say. With regards to this question, I think the biggest thing is sometimes you have to know where you are in time. And what I mean by that is, for example, early January, late December, a lot of people are thinking mindset. A lot of people are thinking in goals. So when you can kind of inject yourself into what people are already interested in and what they're thinking about, it creates synergy by itself. So taxes, for example, Mark just mentioned taxes. That's a great one right now because we're in the middle of a tax season. Maybe not so much in June, right? So it just depends. You got to kind of tailor your content to what's kind of happening around you. COVID was a great one for a lot of months, just because that was something that was in the news. So people were wanting to know what was the latest thing going on with COVID.
Yeah, people are hungry for that kind of content too. So people are searching more and more. Anybody have any thoughts? We'll have 2 or 3 comments before we switch over to the next topic. David.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I'm hearing a lot of folks right now talk about content creation, and they're really talking about having success, creating content that is from the LP perspective and how to underwrite deals from the LP perspective, which makes a lot of sense to me. But I see a lot of content out there from syndicators that to me seems to be targeted more at someone as an active investor, and which I see as strange. And I don't know if any of you guys have tried that and been successful. Like syndicators were saying, hey, here's how to buy real estate, here's how to do all this. It seems counterintuitive to me. The stuff that I hear you guys saying makes a lot more sense. I don't know if anybody's tried it the other way.
That's great insight, David. So I'm a passive investor, and I love joining these investor groups where we share due diligence. And so I love content focused on due diligence, and that people, are doing their homework, knowing about these tertiary markets, how to handle post-COVID evictions. And, that's a difference I feel from, an operator that can get that extra alpha over others. But I love content. And like these groups I'm part of, we always talk about like latest articles or posts, a lot of your recorded podcasts, and just share it. And hey, did you hear David talk about, this market or what's going on?
I'll make a quick comment about that. I run a pretty popular podcast, and content is everything. When I first launched it 5.5 years ago, we had 0 lead flow. And probably no lead flow for the first 6 months. But as time went on, I built the podcast up and the audience started to grow. And I continue to put out quality content, which is the key, by the way. We saw leads start to come in through the podcast. Today, about 5.5 years later, about half of our lead flow is coming through the podcast, either directly or indirectly, but it's almost always tied to the podcast. So it's just answering their frequently asked questions and providing content to help build their education, their knowledge, their confidence in you and what you're doing in the project. So you can wrap around a tight theme and put content out that speaks to them, but brings them back to you. It's very powerful. If you're not doing a podcast, you should consider doing a podcast in your niche. It cannot be a generalist podcast. It has to be specific.
I love that, Marco. So my brother's a doctor, and he's too busy being a doctor, but he listens to this podcaster talk about real estate investing. And he's like, Jeff, I feel like he trusts him more sometimes than me, because he's putting out all this really good educational content and he trusts them. And him and all of his doctor friends, they literally just say, hey, just take it, like however much, and deploy it into these deals, because he just sponsors conferences, hosts free conferences for doctors. And he is the most, respected individual when it comes to real estate investing for doctors.
I would like to add a comment to Jeff's due diligence. I'm really early in a major master planning series of events, and the due diligence has been extensive in this region. And of course, we've targeted major opportunity zone future sites to follow through with the implementing and developing of the very first property. And the due diligence has been not just locally for one project, but regionally. And based on the dynamics of the market and the exiting of tenants leaving the Seattle based upon tax policies, there's really the target areas that we've got to grow to are outstanding. But unfortunately, the content that I have in this early stage of developing is not sufficient to the big scope of the projects that we've got. So just wanted to let you guys know that I'm really enjoying the expertise and the level of development that you are in and success. I'm at the early stage and ready to take off like a rocket, but the content has to be developed to get to that level for those investors that we have an outreach for. Unfortunately, we haven't really had much success outreaching for investors at this point, but I think if we get a solid 1 or 2 accredited investors, what we have at the base, at the very first level of development, the returns on investment are incredible. So we're looking forward to not just that first project, but leaping into a series of them. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. And yeah, I'm really humbled by the expertise on this panel too. And thank you all for sharing. Brian, you bring up a really good question. How's everybody viewing sustainability in both operations and constructions on their properties? I know many of you kind of touch into this world. Anybody want to unpack that question?
I'll start off where that came from.
All right.
One of the big focuses on proper execution to meet the intent of the Opportunity Zone program is to help create solutions that these different communities are having, and truly affordable housing that is high quality stock, yet is affordable, that has lower energy costs, because lower income people, working class people, if they have high energy costs because they're living in substandard housing, it has a big impact on the amount of money that they have for other purposes, including food and things like that. So Caliber has been using net zero as a way to increase the energy efficiency of our properties, putting solar on as appropriate, making sure that we have Internet of Things technology so that our residents can be able to monitor and control their energy consumption better. So I wanted to, get some thoughts and feedback about how others are handling the sustainability aspects of their properties.
Josh, go ahead.
Yeah, the one thing, so on the development side, we typically do try to leverage sustainability, energy efficiency where we can. On the sort of buy and hold investment side, we typically look at property operations to see where the pain points are. For example, we bought 6 properties in Texas in November and December of 19, and pretty much across the board, there were 4 in San Antonio, 2 in Dallas. Across the board, the water expense was significantly higher than we projected. And we had received plenty of utility bills from the sellers of the properties. The water bills just, I don't know if people are filling up swimming pools or running, car detailing or what they're doing. But the water bills are significantly higher. So we have done some work, and we're in the process now of installing a It's a unit level product that monitors water usage, and they have the vendor has an algorithm. They know by bedroom size what consumption should be, and it will, once installed, it'll flag units for us that there must be some sort of leak there. And two of the properties were 1970s construction that went through rehab post 2000. The other 4 were built post 2000, but we expect that there are significant leaks, and we're excited about how this unit level monitoring system will give us that clarity and that insight into what's going on where and how we're able to address that.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. I know we have 10 minutes left, but if anybody has any, pressing questions or topics that they'd like to bring up, right, we're all surrounded by very successful and smart people here. Hopefully we can all help you.
I have one comment on the net zero. We have some strategic alliances involved with our development on the pre-construction, pre-design levels. And we've reached out and pitched to a number of energy companies, and that's been highly successful. We've got one interested party out of Toronto willing to put in the capital for all of the waste to energy design. And we've got a supplier out of Canada as well, Vancouver, who is participating on that with them. So that's been a very, very successful design build feature for the asset that we have. And also, one of the reasons they're willing to jump in is because in our city downtown core, we have 2 major multifamily units being developed and built. One's complete today, one will be completed in 2 years. So we have a district model that we're evaluating the 2 developers adjacent to us to be able to capture a district model. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Let's go to Colby and then David, and we'll wrap it up.
Yeah, I just kind of want to expand upon what Josh was talking about, because I deal like David, and those mom and pops, and they typically, the C-class properties are going to be a little bit older. Is one of the things when I'm doing my walkthrough and inspection, we also have our contractor on site. And the things I'm looking at is the what kind of faucets and stuff. Because, the utilities is what we're finally finding out, especially in the smaller properties, is there's a lot that can be done in cost savings when it comes to utilities. And not just doing build back, but going in and hey, instead of having, 5-gallon per flush toilets from the 70s, let's maybe update those to a little more low flow. Same thing with, shower heads. We're also looking at programmable thermostats. And, everyone's like, oh, it can be pretty expensive. But what we're finding out is if you order stuff in bulk, it's going to cut your prices. And going in and having the contractor put them in as you're taking over the property, we're seeing, a lot of those utilities, it goes right back to your bottom line. So that's one of the things that we focus on.
That's good insight. Thanks, Colby. David.
Yeah, once again, I was going to say almost exactly the same thing Colby was saying. One thing, we notice all the time with these kind of C-class properties, if you aggressively inspect and look for things, we're constantly finding, water leaks in the crawl space, toilets that leak, toilets that run, that just need a new flapper, sinks that just drip. So just a good walkthrough with a good general contractor or someone who knows what they're doing. It's amazing what you can do with the utility bills with just the basics before you even get to the high-tech solution.
Thanks, David. Those are really great comments. And that I know a lot of people are focusing on that net zero from a sustainability side. So that was a really good, insightful discussion. So, we're coming up to the hour. I wanted to, mention to everyone, we're going to be inviting everyone into a private Slack group where you can continue the conversation. I see a lot of chat going between the panelists and also even on the attendees. You can speak to these panelists by joining?
So usually every month we host, a mastermind or a conference, and it's always a good mix of operators, syndicators, real estate podcasters, and even family offices and accredited investors that join in here. So we really want to leverage what we call the wisdom of the crowds. Thank you all for joining. Any questions, comments, we're here to really just connect everybody, build the community. And as Ivan mentioned, please join our private Slack and keep the conversation there. If there's any time you have a question or a topic that somebody else can help out with, we're here to help.